following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
WCW Uncensored took place on March 16th live from North Charleston, South Carolina. Just over 9,000 fans showed up to see a main event featuring three teams. Team WCW, Team Piper and Team NWO battle it out, with each team having their own reasons for taking part in the match. I'd usually say here that you don't need to watch Reliving the War in order to enjoy this pay-per-view video, but honestly, the road to the Uncensored main event was so convoluted that you probably would be best looking at the past 3 episodes or so, just to see how we got here. But I'll do my best to condense everything down a bit later on. Let's take a look at the opening match of Uncensored 97. Dean Malenko once again kicks off a WCW pay-per-view, and this time he's getting a shot at Eddie Guerrero's US title. This feud started back at Super Brawl 7, where Eddie Guerrero accidentally cost Dean Malenko the Cruiserweight Championship. Malenko blamed Guerrero for the loss while also reverting back to a heel, and as for Eddie, well, Dean told everybody that there's a side to Eddie Guerrero that the fans don't see, and Malenko wanted to expose Guerrero as a cheater, a guy who is so jealous of Malenko that he'd do anything it takes to win. The thing is, Eddie actually did start cheating to win matches, so we've got some very interesting character development going into the match where Eddie may not be as innocent as we initially thought. This is a no disqualification match, by the way. Reinstated referee Randy Anderson is only there to count a pinfall or submission. Malenko pushes Guerrero down at the opening bell, but Eddie fires back with right hands before putting Dean down with a shoulder block. Eddie then gets aggressive by punching Dean while Malenko's stuck in a side headlock, but Dean answers with a hard shoulder block that sends Eddie flying across the ring. Eddie takes some time on the outside to regroup, but it doesn't help. Malenko stomps a mud hole in Eddie Guerrero before delivering a suplex. So far, the audience have cheered for both men, but when Eddie returns the favour and he begins laying the boots into Dean, the crowd boos the US champ. Eddie runs at Dean, but the Iceman throws Eddie into the top turnbuckle and a big side suplex follows. Just as Dean applies a knee submission on Guerrero, we cut away to the backstage area where Kevin Nash, Scott Hall and Six are standing over a fallen Rick Steiner. Scott Hall says the Steiners are having a run of bad luck, it seems, as the NWO pretends to be concerned. Clearly it was Hall, Nash and Six who attacked Rick. The commentators wonder what this means for tonight's main event as our opening match continues. Eddie gets thrown over the top rope, perfectly legal in a WCW no DQ match, and Dean decides to grab the US title and do a little damage. Eddie takes 2 shots with the international object, and Dean almost takes Eddie's head off with a clothesline afterwards. Dean goes to do it again, but Eddie counters with a Sambo suplex. The crowd can't help but to cheer. Eddie shows he isn't afraid to fight dirty next by twisting his foot on Dean's face, and Guerrero then begins focusing his offense on Dean's left knee. And when Eddie Guerrero picks a body part, you know he'll make things a bit more interesting, from hitting a double axe handle from the top rope to performing his vaulting senton. Eddie brings it down to the mat where he hopes to get a submission, and let's get this out of the way. Someone's dad is dressed up like Sting in the audience, and he's gonna distract us throughout this whole pay-per-view. Eddie transitions into a snug STF as we go to split screen. Rick Steiner is getting put on a stretcher, and the NWO continue to feign concern. Guerrero and Malenko then begin fighting on the outside where Eddie stays in control. Dean does get an opening when he throws Guerrero into the guardrails, but Eddie comes right back with more focused offense to the leg and knee. Rick Steiner has been taken to the hospital too, so Team WCW will be at a disadvantage tonight, it seems. Eddie locks in a figure 4, but Dean breaks it with a thumb to the eye. Dean tries a backslide, but Eddie pulls off a nice European uppercut counter, and Guerrero floors Malenko with a jumping back elbow. Eddie is having a great match so far. After missing his senton from the apron to the ring, Guerrero quickly recovers and Dean gets hit with a baseball slide. Guerrero then maybe gets a little too cocky, and Dean manages to push him into the guardrail after a failed diving attack. Malenko brings it to the ring where he applies an armbar, but Guerrero gets back up. He pulls the straps down to show he's all business tonight, and Malenko takes a backbreaker followed by a powerbomb. We then get an excellent sequence that in a way sums up the whole storyline. Two great wrestlers pulling off great counters, but both men also hit low blows when the opportunity arises. This was pretty well done here. Dean's able to hit a power slam next and he signals for the end. He goes to the top rope. He hits a frog splash on Guerrero, but it's Dean who breaks up the pin afterwards, wanting to deliver a bit more pain to Eddie. It's a shame that Dean forgot about the knee when performing the frog splash though. We see a beautiful head scissors takedown from Guerrero, but Dean comes back with a power slam, and things really pick up with Dean hitting a perfect German suplex and Eddie replying with a tornado DDT. The match ends with Six showing up, and once again Six tries to steal the US title. Eddie grabs the belt, Six tries to hit Guerrero with his video camera but he misses. Dean's able to pick up the camera and Guerrero gets leveled. Dean covers Eddie and we have a new United States champion. Once again, a Dean Malenko opening pay-per-view match has the potential to be the match of the night. Great work here by Dean and great work by Eddie also. It'll be interesting to see how Eddie takes this loss tomorrow night on Monday Nitro. Mean Gene Okerlund gets a backstage interview with Roddy Piper, and Piper can't believe he has to win tonight's main event to get another shot at Hulk Hogan. I guess there's no avoiding this. Now would be a good time to show everybody who hasn't seen it this fucking thing. For those who don't watch Reliving the War, this has been our carefully documented timeline of events leading up to tonight's main event. It's been confusing with things not being made clear and things changing consistently. But all you need to know is the rules of the match, and also you need to know what's at stake. Each team get their own prize if they win. If Piper's team wins, Piper gets a cage match with Hogan. If Team WCW wins, the NWO are put out of action for 3 years. And if the NWO win, they get a shot at any title belt on a date of their choosing. 3 men from each team start the match, new superstars enter at unspecified time intervals, and the last man standing wins. It's an elimination match where pinfalls, submissions, and over-the-top rope eliminations all count. Oh, and Dennis Rodman has joined the New World Order and he promised to be here tonight for the main event. Piper says Flair and Anderson promised they'd be here, but they didn't show up. Piper's teaming up with the other horsemen tonight, but he says he doesn't know if these guys ride mares or if they ride studs. Piper has to deal with Hogan, he has to deal with Rodman, he's worried about Rick Steiner on the other opposing team. Piper is having a bit of a meltdown it seems. The horsemen show up and Jarrett says the group is on the same page, Piper has nothing to worry about. Big Mongo tells Dennis Rodman that we'll find out who the MVP of Chicago is later tonight. And Benoit tells Piper that the Hot Rod became the icon by making the right decisions, and the right decision was teaming up with the horsemen tonight. Piper throws up the symbol of excellence. It looks like he's ready to conduct some horseman business now that his worries have been somewhat cleared up. Mean Gene says time's up and Deborah unfortunately can't speak tonight. And Tony Schiavone says we don't necessarily need to hear from Deborah, all the fans need to do is look at her. Ooh. Back in the ring, Ultimo Dragon defeated Psychosis with a Tiger Suplex. You know what to expect from these two. It wasn't as good as the opener and the crowd definitely enjoyed the Malenko vs Guerrero match more, but this was still a great showcase of why the cruiserweights were so special in WCW. Guerrero once said that the cruiserweights were the backbone of World Championship Wrestling, and he was absolutely right with that statement. Diamond Dallas Page comes out for an interview. Randy Savage attacked DDP from behind on Nitro a few weeks back, and ever since then, Savage has refused to acknowledge Diamond Dallas Page. Savage even forgot DDP's name. Mean Gene says there's a rumour going around that Dallas could step in for the injured Rick Steiner tonight, but Page says he showed up tonight to make Randy Savage acknowledge him. Dallas challenges Savage to snap into a diamond cutter once again, and the crowd pops. Randy Savage then appears with Miss Elizabeth, and it looks like Savage is finally gonna acknowledge Dallas. Not only that, Savage is also gonna acknowledge Dallas's wife, Kimberly. Savage says he got DDP all wrong. The Macho Man actually respects DDP, because as Savage and Elizabeth walk through the airport, they noticed a magazine being sold that featured a Kimberly Page photo shoot. And this photo shoot left nothing to the imagination at all. Page is pissed off. He's annoyed that the NWO would use his wife to try and get one over on him, but it gets worse. Out walks Kimberly and, well, her clothes have been covered with NWO spray paint. DDP then gets Pearl Harbored by Savage. The Macho Man then makes Kimberly look on as Dallas gets NWO sprayed on his back. Kimberly rushes over to her husband, and Elizabeth shows she's 100% NWO by spraying Mrs. Page on the back also. Mean Gene says this is completely disgraceful and despicable. Elizabeth says Kimberly should be happy that the NWO loves her so much, and Savage says DDP is the man before walking away. On commentary, Bobby Heenan says Savage has completely lost his mind. Next up, we have a martial arts match, Glacier vs Mortis. Mortis was introduced on WCW Saturday Night as the arch nemesis of Glacier by James Vandenberg, maybe better known by his real name, James Mitchell. James explained that he himself was a collector of all things unusual and odd, and that's why he manages Mortis. The Mortis character became a good pro wrestler before travelling around Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand to compete in blood sports. And James explained that for 6 months, WCW invested time and money in the Blood Runs Cold storyline. This only resulted in a slow-moving block of ice known as Glacier. Mortis is here to rectify that, and Mortis calls himself the skeleton in Glacier's closet, maybe implying that there's some sort of mysterious backstory going on here that we don't know about. I think Mortis just became my favourite wrestler of all time. Mortis would watch Glacier's matches on WCW Saturday Night from a distance, as Frosty Balls clearly became the target of this new superstar. And yeah, that's about it really. So this is the in-ring debut of Mortis, but it's not Chris Kenyon's first match in WCW. This is being billed as a martial arts match where actually it's just a normal one-on-one no DQ match, pay no attention. Glacier starts off by trying to sweep the leg, but Mortis has seen the Karate Kid enough times to dodge it. Mortis spits on Glacier's face and this just pisses our frosty friend off. Mortis gets kicked into the ropes and Glacier lands a backdrop afterwards. Mortis comes back with a hard slap to the ear and it's a pretty effective strike. Glacier gets stunned and Mortis is able to put his opponent down to the mat. Can we also appreciate just how good Mortis's ring gear looks? It might not be for everyone, but I think the presentation of the whole Mortis character is absolutely on point. Mortis gets overconfident and Glacier is then able to sweep the leg. We see a jumping sidekick from the real Iceman, and Glacier ends up kicking Mortis right out of the ring. Glacier performs a vaulting crossbody from the ring to the outside, and Glacier brings it back to basics with a suplex on the protective mats. Vandenberg breaks the follow-up pin by grabbing Glacier's leg, and this leads to Glacier chasing the future Sinister Minister around the ring. Mortis then catches Glacier with a baseball slide and Glacier takes an excellent bump. Glacier then gets dropped headfirst on the apron, and Mortis's follow-up clothesline really should have got a bigger pop from the audience. Mortis successfully hits a famouser on Glacier, but he tries it again and he ends up taking a powerbomb. A jumping back elbow from Glacier gets followed up with an inverted tilt-a-whirl slam. Glacier then leapfrogs over Mortis's back before hitting a big boot. Mortis hits a kick of his own afterwards, and the unique offense from both competitors has been brilliant here. This is really refreshing. After nailing a superplex, Glacier goes back upstairs, but Mortis counters with a perfect Northern Lights suplex. A neckbreaker puts Glacier back in control, and we see a flying crossbody that only gets a 2 count. Glacier then tries to end it with a cryonic kick, but Mortis pulls the referee in front of him. This gives Mortis enough time to hit his very own super kick, but again, it's only a 2. Vandenberg holds Glacier in place for another super kick, but Glacier ducks out of the way. Mortis is able to pull back, but he walks right into the cryonic kick, ending the match with a pinfall victory for Glacier. This, I feel, was the wrong move. Mortis looked excellent in this match. Glacier was already somewhat established. A victory for this new character would have went a long way, but still a fun match. Vandenberg begins signaling for someone else to come down to the ring, and here comes Wrath, played by Brian Clark, who we last saw on WWF television as the Atom Bomb character. Wrath isn't given a name here, all we know is that he's maybe another unusual oddity collected by Vandenberg, and Wrath also does not like Glacier. Wrath and Mortis destroy Chili McFreeze and they look really good doing it too. Another entertaining match from WCW Uncensored 97, and I genuinely look forward to seeing more of Mortis and Wrath on Reliving the War. Next up, we have a strap match. The American males explode once again on pay-per-view when Scotty Riggs takes on Buff the Stuff Bagwell. You don't need the backstory here, you know it already. They used to be a tag team, Buff joined the NWO, Bagwell has been interfering in Scotty's matches and whipping him with a belt. That's really all that's been happening. Riggs won't even give Buff a chance to get strapped up. Bagwell takes a whipping and he ends up getting strapped up on the outside of the ring. Riggs starts off as the aggressor, but it doesn't take long for Buff to turn things around. Riggs gets hit with the whip and he takes a clothesline, giving Bagwell ample time to pose in the ring. Buff chokes Scotty before going to the top rope. Riggs is able to get up just in time to smash Bagwell's little Buff daddy on the turnbuckles, and Bagwell takes another few shots with the whip before getting superplexed off the top. Bagwell takes more punishment, and so far no one has tried to touch the 4 turnbuckles. After a short scuffle on the outside, the two get back in the ring where Riggs chokes Buff, Buff chokes Riggs. We get to see this spot here where Riggs slides under Buff and Bagwell's bag gets totally wrecked. Look at how high Buff jumps up here. Riggs then tries to touch the 4 turnbuckles, but he only makes it to 2 before Buff fights back. Riggs gets dropped across the top rope and Bagwell has a chat with fans at home about just how great he is. After giving Scotty another bad whipping, Buff approaches the cameras and he says he loves himself more than anyone can ever imagine. He then tells fans to give him a moment and he goes straight back to whipping Riggs. People don't like Buff's confidence, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. Buff tries to hit the turnbuckles again, but he's stopped briefly. Buff has no problems putting Riggs back down and starting the process all over again. And I'll admit, while I enjoy Buff being as slimy as humanly possible, this match here hasn't been the most exciting. Bagwell making Riggs do the American males cheer gets a good laugh from the audience though, and the biggest pop of the match comes when Buff tries to pin Riggs and Randy Anderson won't count. Bagwell pushes Randy, Randy pushes back, and the crowd give a big cheer when Randy verbally destroys Buff in the corner. Bagwell screaming that he's sorry also got a laugh out of me. Riggs makes a comeback and he tries to end the match. Buff puts an end to the offensive flurry by throwing Riggs out of the ring and choking his opponent. But have a listen here to the sound of Scotty's back hitting the apron.
You go back to get him, man. My goodness.
There's no way that didn't hurt. It looked and sounded pretty brutal. Buff uses all his body weight to choke out Riggs and Scotty is now out cold. This allows Buff to touch all 4 turnbuckles and win the match. He touches the last turnbuckle with his ass. What comes across in this match so much is that Buff Bagwell was definitely the entertainer of the two. Riggs was a great pro wrestler, but Buff had the entertainment side nailed down. Whether you found Buff's antics entertaining is a completely different story, but it can't be denied that between the American males, Bagwell was definitely more of a character. The match was passable, but not great. It's the weakest match on the card so far, in my opinion. Team NWO cut a promo backstage and Scott Hall says that Dennis Rodman joining the NWO was sweet. Hulk asks Macho Man though if it's as sweet as DDP's old lady. The NWO guarantee victory tonight and Hulk Hogan says when Dennis Rodman shows up later on, that's when the tide turns. The Hulkster's been plotting something with the real Hot Rod, and the plan will be put into effect in tonight's main event. The group continue making fun of Kimberly when Scott says he thought Silicon Valley was in California. Kevin Nash says the NWO are as bad as they want to be, and the promo ends with the group saying when you're NWO for life. Macho remembers to bring his magazine with him as the New World Order leave. Next we have a tornado tag match, Harlem Heat versus the Public Enemy. We have practically no story here either. Since the Four Corners tag match was turned into a triangle match at Super Brawl 7, it seems that there's no longer number 1 contenders for the tag belts. And I think that was done because of the uncensored main event, with the NWO potentially losing all their belts if Team WCW wins the match. Jeff Jarrett and Steve McMichael were originally going to face the Public Enemy tonight, but Harlem Heat have stepped in since the Horsemen are in the main event. Anything goes in this one, and Dusty Rhodes laughs when Harlem Heat take away Public Enemy's plunder and start using it against Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge. It doesn't take long until we have the dreaded WCW split screen, and things quickly get out of control. Sister Sherry helps Booker T on the outside, while Johnny Grunge uses a toilet lid on Stevie Ray. Dusty's reaction to this is amazing.
That's a toilet lid. Was that in the trash?
Stevie Ray gets his head smashed with a pair of trash can lids. Dusty forgets himself and he says this is just like a xylophone, and Bobby Heenan corrects him, saying it's more like a pair of cymbals. Dusty is just so excited for this match. We go back and forth from the split screen, and Rocco Rock and Stevie Ray go on the outside, and it's just chaotic. We get shots with baking trays, trash can lids, trash cans. I'm just realizing that there isn't much point talking about the action inside the ring. What you see here is what the whole match has been like since the opening bell. But Dusty Rhodes' commentary still makes this a must watch. I wish I could play more of it without the video getting hit, but you know what, here. Bobby Heenan can't stop laughing at Dusty, and it just brings a smile to your face. Johnny Grunge gets busted open by one of many weapon shots in this match, and I'm not going to sit here and find out which one it was. Bobby Heenan says this match is the best as Rocco Rock chokes Stevie Ray with a toilet lid, and when we go to the split screen again, we can see a conveniently placed table sitting on the outside. Both teams begin fighting at the guardrail, and what do you want here? Do you want to see more trash can shots, or do you want more Dusty Rhodes commentary? I want more Dusty Rhodes commentary, so here.
I used to do that, my little brother.
As Sherry begins choking Rocco Rock with the cable, Tony Schiavone attempts to call the match, but Bobby Heenan and Dusty Rhodes have completely left planet Earth at this point. They're having way too much fun. Rocco Rock picks up a pizza pan.
It's a pizza pan or a hubcap. A pizza pan.
Booker gets clocked and Dusty goes into hysterics once again. More absolute fuckery happens on the outside when Sister Sherry decides to hit Stevie Ray with a trash can. Absolutely no idea what happened here, and Stevie has to tell Sherry it's alright after the botch. Looks like Sherry had a nasty cut too. The match comes to an end when Grunge and Rock perform the Public Enemy Sandwich. I hate calling it that. And then Steve McMichael and Double J show up. Remember, they were supposed to be in this match originally. Mongo uses his magical briefcase to take out Rocco Rock. Booker T then lands a Harlem Hangover, and that's it. Harlem Heat wins one of the most chaotic and unintentionally hilarious tag matches in WCW pay-per-view history. I prefer seeing Harlem Heat in standard tag team matches, and the 5 million trash can lid shots are not for me, but I know there's people out there who would enjoy this. Absolutely everyone though should watch it just for Dusty Rhodes and Bobby Heenan on commentary. They made a match I normally wouldn't like very fun indeed. Team WCW get interviewed backstage and Scotty Steiner is pissed off. Scott says he didn't need any more incentive to beat up the NWO tonight, but now that Rick has been taken out in an ambulance, Scott is going to rip the NWO apart later on, and Team Piper better stay out of his way. When he finishes his part of the promo, Scott does a Road Warriors style tell him Hawk, but he says tell him Lex, a clear cue for Lex to take the next bit of the promo, but Mean Gene says nah, not today, and the Giant gets asked the next question. Lex gives Steiner a reassuring pat on the arm as if to say, it's okay lad, these things happen. The Giant says it's time to do some spring cleaning in WCW, and tonight there's gonna be some choke slamming from the Giant, some racking from Flexi Lexi, and some suplexing from Scott Steiner. Lex Luger thinks he's a modern day wrestling fan on Twitter when he says tonight's main event isn't just a wrestling match, it's all about society and taking down this anti-establishment trash known as the New World Order. The NWO have no respect for authority, they have no respect for society as a whole, they have no respect for the fans and no respect for the history of WCW and the NWA. It's made clear during this promo too that there's no replacement for Rick Steiner. Team WCW goes into the main event with three men who Lex says were brought together under adversity, but Luger does promise to get the job done tonight and restore the legacy of World Championship Wrestling. Prince Iaukea vs Rey Mysterio was billed as a return match, so it's a rematch. Why bother billing it as anything? Iaukea defended the TV title against Mysterio back at Super Brawl, and I thought the match really highlighted how inexperienced Iaukea was. Either that or he was maybe just nervous. While this match is an improvement, there's still a few moments that show us that Prince Iaukea maybe wasn't still ready for pay-per-view, let alone a match in the semi-main spot. Prince's Samoan drop right at the beginning of the match looked good. He took a good bump when Rey got the knees up during a springboard splash, and Rey followed up with a great springboard somersault senton. After a bit of action on the outside, we get this right here where the positioning was all off, and a bit of extra work was needed to get Rey on the ropes, although to be fair, Prince's powerbomb afterwards looked pretty good. Check out Rey's split-legged springboard moonsault too. There wasn't much Rey couldn't do during this time in his career. The problem here though is that the crowd is just flat out silent during the match. I know I say this a lot, but here, take a look and have a listen.
Mid-air did the Prince. Prince has him up and down with a power bomb.
Even moves that would usually get the crowd pumped up only get a smattering of applause.
Using the springboard. Oh boy. And that was great.
And when both men scissor each other in mid-air, Tony Schiavone is a little hesitant in saying what happened.
Both tried a drop kick. And they almost, they scissored their legs that time.
After performing a corkscrew senton, Mysterio covers Iaukea. The time limit expires though, right in the middle of the count. Mysterio asks for more time and Prince Iaukea grants it. There's a lot of groans in the audience as Iaukea says Mysterio is a great athlete and there has to be a winner. When the match resumes, the commentators do their best to talk over the boring chants.
But got hit in the gut and got hit in the throat, I believe that time.
Rey hits the West Coast pop, but Iaukea rolls over and Mysterio takes a pinfall loss. From bell to bell, it is a better performance than the Super Brawl match, but that doesn't mean it was good. Just like the fans in attendance, I actually couldn't wait for this one to end, and I normally really enjoy Rey Mysterio's WCW matches. Alright, time for the main event. I need to make a few updates to the timeline of events here, so let's put that here. I think the over-the-top rope eliminations were only announced on this pay-per-view also, so let's add that here. And there we go. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how we got to the uncensored main event. We talked about this on Reliving the War, but there's absolutely no way Team WCW is gonna win this. Their reward for winning the match is just too far-fetched. Team Piper has a chance, I guess. A Piper vs Hogan cage match isn't out of the realm of possibility, but the smart money here is on the New World Order. Okay, so Michael Buffer explains what's going to happen here. There's going to be a few rounds in this match. Round 1 will have one man from each team and it lasts for 5 minutes. We then get 3 more guys entering the ring to begin round 2. Then 2 minutes later, round 3 begins with another 3 men. And the 4th and final round is another 2 minutes later with everyone now in the match. Eliminations are via pinfall, submission, over the top rope and also knockout, forgot to mention that earlier. Buffer also talks about the prizes for each team, and then Buffer tells fans to get ready to rumble. This is the Uncensored 1997 main event. Starting the match, we have Chris Benoit representing Team Piper, Scott Hall representing the New World Order, and the Giant representing Team WCW. Hall and Benoit fight as the Giant slowly makes his way to the ring, and the big man makes it clear that he isn't interested in helping Team Piper. Both Benoit and Hall get clotheslined and the crowd goes crazy. After smashing Benoit and Hall's heads together, the Giant goes on a rampage. Hard chops get delivered from the big man, and although Benoit tries to fight back, he's absolutely no match for the Giant tonight. Every time Hall and Benoit try to mount some offense, the Giant just swats them away. It's quite interesting that Benoit and Hall are kind of teaming up here to try and do some damage, and Tony Schiavone brings up a pretty obvious but pretty important point also. There's no reason why the Horsemen couldn't help out Team WCW to get rid of the NWO for good in this match. Honestly, it makes no sense for the Horsemen to help Roddy Piper tonight anyway. Getting rid of the New World Order would benefit the Horsemen more than Roddy Piper getting a cage match against Hogan, but let's not get into all that. The Giant destroys both guys for almost the whole 5 minutes. Around 20 seconds before round 2 begins, the Giant goes over the top rope. He throws himself at Hall, Hall ducks out of the way, and maybe the biggest threat of this whole match is now gone and Team WCW only have 2 men left. The next 3 competitors enter the match. Jeff Jarrett representing Team Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage representing the NWO, and Lex Luger of Team WCW. As expected, the match instantly gets more chaotic. Lex is all alone representing Team WCW while the other teams have 2 members inside the ring. Macho gets his bandana knocked off by the Total Package and Scott Hall saves his teammate from taking a press slam. Hall then tries to hit an outsider's edge on Double J, but Jeff blocks it just before round 3 begins. Steve McMichael of Team Piper, Kevin Nash of the NWO, and Team WCW's final member Scott Steiner enters the match. So far, the only elimination has been the Giant, and there's a real problem with ring space here. Everyone has to kind of stop so Scotty Steiner can hit a tilt-a-whirl slam on Jeff Jarrett and a double underhook powerbomb on Scott Hall. So Kevin Nash just watches his tag partner take a big move before attacking Steiner. Benoit and Malenko pull Jarrett down from an outsider's edge as the clock ticks down to the fourth and final round. Just before the last competitors enter the match, things get really bad for Team Piper when Kevin Nash eliminates Jeff Jarrett and Scott Hall eliminates Big Mongo. The New World Order are the only squad with a full team now. The final entrant should have been Rick Steiner, Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan, but only Roddy Piper comes out. Rick is still in hospital, and it looks like Hogan is going to make the fans wait. While Piper was making his way down to the ring, Kevin Nash eliminated Scott Steiner. This is a seriously dominant performance from the New World Order, and although the match felt predictable, I don't think anyone could have guessed it would have been this cut and dry. The production team screw up and put another countdown clock in the corner even though there were no more entrants. You may think this was Hogan's own personal clock, but no. Out comes Hulk Hogan and Rodzilla of the Chicago Bulls. Dennis Rodman was made an official member of the New World Order on Nitro 6 days earlier. Hulk Hogan completely big times the whole match. He takes time to take media photos with Dennis Rodman on the outside, while the other competitors continue to work in the ring. Piper begins choking Savage with a chain and the two men fight on the outside. Benoit, Luger and the Outsiders are still in the match, but Hulk Hogan takes his sweet time in entering the ring. Hollywood finally gets in and he chokes Piper with his shirt. Piper then gets thrown out of the ring, but he goes through the ropes. The crowd has started a loud "We want Sting" chant as the match continues in the NWO's favour. Hogan and Piper then begin brawling on the outside, with Piper getting the upper hand. They go to the rampway and the legendary Bill Apter almost gets knocked over when Randy Savage offers some assistance to Hulk. The three men make it back to the ring, and look at this. Hogan and Savage bring Piper to the ropes. Dennis Rodman is supposed to be there. He clearly isn't. Macho walks over, right past Lex Luger of Team WCW. He tells Rodman to get in position and Macho walks right back over to Hogan and Piper. Lex just stands there and lets it all happen. Macho then waves Rodman into position for his spot, and it really does take you out of the match. It feels really amateurish, and this is the main event of a WCW pay-per-view. Rodman then holds down the top rope and Roddy goes flying over. Roddy has been eliminated, and Piper tries to go after Dennis, but security hold him back. Team WCW and Team Piper only have one man left, and there's been 0 NWO eliminations. This has been an absolute slaughter. As Piper gets attacked on the outside by Rodman, Hogan and Savage, Scott Hall has some serious problems lifting Benoit up for an outsider's edge. It's so bad that Kevin Nash has to help Hall get Benoit up for the move. Remember when Kevin Nash called guys like Benoit vanilla midgets? Yeah, so do I. Chris Benoit gets eliminated next, so we now have the complete Team NWO versus Lex Luger. The NWO have a two-sweet party with Dennis as Kevin Nash chokes Luger in the corner, and the crowd show their disapproval. The NWO have a team huddle as they decide how to finish Luger off, and Kevin Nash decides that he's going to pull the trigger with a jackknife. Lex counters it and he begins fighting back. The crowd lose their shit as Lex cleans house, and he manages to get Savage up for the rack. The Macho Man gives up, and so we have a 3-on-1 match. Lex then quickly clotheslines Big Sexy over the top rope. We're down to 2-on-1. Can Lex do it? Can he beat Team NWO all on his own? Scott Hall finds himself in the rack and the crowd can't believe it. Hall gives up, and we now have Lex Luger versus Hulk Hogan, the leader of Team WCW versus the leader of the New World Order. If Lex pulls this off, the unthinkable happens and the New World Order can't wrestle for 3 whole years. The dream gets completely shattered in a matter of seconds, I'm afraid to say. Kevin Nash distracts the referee while Hogan gets put in the rack. Dennis Rodman hands a spray can to Randy Savage, and Savage nails Luger. Hogan just falls on top of Lex, and Hogan gains all the glory by pinning Luger to end the match. Team NWO win the Uncensored main event, and they win a shot at any title on a date of their choosing. The win gets totally sucked out of the North Charleston Coliseum when the NWO get announced as the winners. Luger gets his back spray painted, and Dennis Rodman throws some of the worst looking slaps ever to the total package. The NWO leave the ring and they pose for more media photos, but then the Stinger comes down to the ring. Now, Sting was supposedly part of the New World Order after joining the group 3 weeks ago, so why Scott Hall ran in to attack what he thought was his NWO teammate makes absolutely no sense, but that doesn't matter one bit. I'm tempting fate here by showing more of this pay-per-view, but this pop has to be heard.
Do something! Yes! Alright! Go with it!
All these years later, and this kind of stuff can still give you goosebumps. Sting takes out Savage, Hall and Nash, each man takes a Scorpion Death Drop, and then Sting points his bat at Hulk Hogan. Sting wants the Hulkster. After dropping his bat, Sting turns his back and he allows Hogan to get in the ring. But Sting doesn't give Hogan the same courtesy he gave the likes of Rick Steiner and Lex Luger. Sting instead turns around and faces Hogan, and when Sting starts laying in the punches, the crowd lose their minds. Uncensored goes off the air with Hulk Hogan taking a Scorpion Death Drop, and that's it, that's the pay-per-view finished. The last match was a mess, and the match format didn't work for a pay-per-view main event, but Luger's brief comeback in the ending with Sting was some real edge-of-your-seat stuff that ended up making the whole main event worth watching. Uncensored 1997 starts off brilliantly, then progressively gets worse in terms of in-ring bell-to-bell action. Dean Malenko, to me, is the WCW pay-per-view MVP with a string of solid matches, and this one here with Guerrero is absolutely no exception. This was the match of the night, for me anyway. The debut of Mortis, I enjoyed that too, but from there things get a little shaky. If you plan on watching this one, you can skip the Iaukea match. The Ultimo Dragon match also feels a little redundant because it follows the Malenko vs Guerrero match, and the Bagwell vs Riggs bout can also be skipped over. Harlem Heat vs the Public Enemy is a must watch for Dusty Rhodes on commentary, and the main event is worth it just to feel those crowd reactions to Luger and Sting. After I get done with scripting and reviewing these pay-per-views, I always tend to check out what others thought. I do this afterwards so my opinion doesn't get swayed. And honestly guys, if you ever want to start doing your own pay-per-view reviews, don't ever go on what other people think and watch it from start to end for yourself. In regards to Uncensored, I read things like the whole Lex Luger vs NWO ending is played out at this point, and I read that Sting's bit at the end saved the whole pay-per-view from being a total disaster, and I 100% disagree with both of those statements. With that being said, there's so many matches you could skip when watching Uncensored 1997, it's hard to recommend the whole pay-per-view based on that fact, but there's also some good moments and matches to be found on this one too. That's gonna do it guys, thanks for watching, and if you want to see what happens next on Monday Nitro, please join me for Reliving the War episode 75 later this week. Take care everyone.